One of the ways that you are exercising, sharing, living into your justice work is through the creation of the Healing Timelines Project. Could you talk a little bit about the story behind its name? What inspired you to create it? And
Yeah.
were there any particular moments or reasons that supported you in deciding to move forward with it?
Yeah, as you can probably tell from my social justice origin story, this passion for advocacy, for lifting the veil and all the shadows of oppression naturally led me into nonprofit work. My parents were always like instilling in me, like, no matter how educated you are, no matter how wealthy you are, what's actually valuable is how well you give back into your community. And so I wanted to make sure that my career gave back to community in a really impactful way. And so I was really drawn into nonprofit work in particular. And as I was doing nonprofit work, that led me to burnout. It led me to really deep burnout and also meeting a lot of different people who were probably at different points of the long march towards justice, is what I'm going to call it, right? Using LLK's work, where folks who had been doing this work for years and were like, this is great. And being young and green and fresh out of college, I was like, it's not great. It's not great yet. And trying to make sense of all of that led me to a lot of burnout, led me on my healing journey, really, because I thought it was enough to just dedicate all of myself to justice work. And I thought I would be fulfilled for that. So it was very self sacrificing. And when was totally burnt out, I was like, wait, social justice work isn't supposed to feel like this. And so I went on my healing journey and realized it was actually a mentor who said to me after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. He said, I believe that any vision of liberation also has to include joy. And no one had ever said that to me. So when you talk about what was the emotion that sustained you through your work, right? It had been up until that point, it was anger and indignation and sadness. And so I had never thought about my activism through a lens of joy. I was like, my ancestors did not sacrifice so that I could just feel like this all the time, feel sad and angry. They sacrificed in the hopes that I would one day feel joy. And so that really reinforced exploration of my own spirituality too. One of the things that I was thinking about through movement work was there was this moment of like cancel culture, right? People caught making mistakes, saying horrendous things, and even looking back at my own origin story of those white boys who stopped me in their truck. I don't think I wanted them to be punished. I just wanted them to apologize. And I wanted the
Mhm.
university to acknowledge that nobody deserves to be treated this way. I don't think I wanted anyone on campus punished. That's what really pushed me to start the Healing Timelines Project as I was going through my own healing journey, as I was connecting to my own spirituality. I believe in a spirituality that's really expansive and really loving and allows people to show up as their full authentic selves with mistakes, with the humanness. That led me to the Healing Timelines Project. That was partially inspired by the film Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I was like, oh, yeah, here is this woman and her daughter. They're traveling through multiple timelines, seeking a timeline in which they understand each other. Really touched me at the time.
Course.
I can't remember when it came out, but the timing is important just because I lost my mom and my grandma in 2021. After losing my mom and my grandma, I had always had a complicated relationship with them. I don't even know if they would have really understood the justice work that I was doing or why I was doing it. I think the dream was always that they would one day understand why I was doing this work. But when I lost my mom and my grandma in 2021, and then I saw that film, it made me think about how can healing happen in this timeline that I'm in right now. And so that's where the inspiration for the name Healing Timelines Project came up, right? Because part of the journey too was understanding how trauma and oppression are connected. That's the crux of the Healing Timelines Project, is that trauma is so preventable. Trauma impacts everyone, and it's also deeply tied to our oppression and vice versa. And part of my journey was understanding, how did my mom and my grandma get this way? My mom was this woman who had really high expectations. I could see where I was taught perfectionism as defined by the characteristics of white supremacy culture. I was really taught that from my mom. She had very high expectations, like anything short of perfection was unacceptable. Perfection was doing your best. Anything
Mhm.
short of I'm doing your best. And then for my grandma was a real hard ass. And she was mean, right? She was this really tough woman. And I had to understand their trauma from war, right? As a project of US imperialism in Southeast Asia. Like, what were the traumas of war and how did they embody those things and then pass them on to me? And then how did that impact the way that I showed up? And so it was untangling all those things and then offering healing and forgiveness and space and grace for some of those things and how they showed up in our family. That's where the inspiration for the Healing Timelines project came. And it was interesting around the same time that I lost my grandma and my mom, it was also like when I first became a mother. My son was born in 2019. My mom and my grandma were still around. And it was amazing to see them become grandparents and great grandparents. I was like, wow, where is this like soft, like gentle mom coming from? I've never seen this woman before. Right? Wow.
I had an experience. Who is this person?
Yeah, it was amazing. But then when my daughter arrived, my mom passed in 2021, and then my daughter came in 2022. I reassessed and was like, healing doesn't just happen backwards in time. It can also happen in like future traveling. And so, what are the ways that I have to change? What are the ways that I want to show up as the new matriarch of my family so that healing can happen? And so, anyway, that's the impetus of the Healing Timelines Project, offering healing not only looking backwards, but also in this current timeline and looking forward to the future lineage that I may have and my descendants and wondering what could this spark? Yeah, the long march towards justice doesn't just have to include pain and anger and sadness. There are moments of joy, and that's the thing that we're looking for. Like, how can that be the baseline, the state that we're in?
Mhm. And you mentioned forgiveness too.
Yeah, the forgiveness is current work. So famous not sure that
Current
I
right
have
now, y'all.
one of the teachers that I listen to a lot is a Buddhist teacher who's passed. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, was alive during the Vietnam War. I think he was advocating in France for peace for Vietnam and everything that was happening. He talks about forgiveness. He says people often think that we can't change the past. And so they hold a lot of anger and resentment over the past. And he actually challenges us to think that you can actually change the past because when you recall those memories and you speak to that memory and say, Mom, Dad, you were unskilled in loving me. Love is a skill that we can build. And in that moment, you were unskilled. And so you can offer forgiveness for that moment and saying, and just noting that you were unskilled and this could have been better. We didn't know enough at the time. So that's what I'm exploring now is like, how do I go back to those memories where I felt harmed and offer forgiveness and state like I, as a child, didn't deserve that, or that was a really unskilled way of showing me that you loved me. What I am discovering about forgiveness, though, is that forgiveness is not the end state. The next stage that I'm working on is like after you've done forgiveness, you actually have to learn how to trust again,
Mm,
especially if you decided that you're going to stay in relationship with these folks. And for me, I've decided I want to stay in relationship with my mom and my grandma. So like, how do I learn if I've forgiven? How do I learn to trust again?
mm.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with my journey in terms of forgiveness and trust.
So learning to trust again, that felt pretty significant for you and for folks who are listening who may also be in that space of learning to trust in relation to what we're talking about here. What are some things that you found helpful so far? Like I know you mentioned this current work. So this is currently happening. This is
Yep.
being created in real time, everyone. But what are some things so far that you found helpful for yourself?
It's really significant, and my wording is really intentional. When I said I still want to stay in relationship with my mom and grandma,
That's right.
I believe that I still hold a relationship with them even though they've passed on. Like I don't think that I know they're not here in the physical world with me anymore, but we're still connected spiritually. And so I've decided that I'm going to build on that spiritual relationship. Like my mom's not here physically anymore, yes, but I'm still going to have a spiritual relationship with her. So that's the part of it. And what I've discovered in my relationship with my mom, especially now, like after the first like 2 years really of just like grieving the loss and then making the conscious decision to continue to have a spiritual relationship with her, I was like finding myself really scared to trust her because when my mom passed, one of the commitments I made to myself was that in my grief, I was not gonna wear rose-colored glasses about my mom's character. Wanted to honor the complex person she was, and I didn't wanna gloss her over into she was the perfect mother and there was nothing wrong, because then it meant I couldn't really learn anything from the relationship that we had. So I wanted to honor the complexity of who she was in her human self. And so in trying to honor that commitment, I was like finding myself like sometimes when folks were say like, I really miss like my siblings in particular, because they also lost my mom. I was afraid of losing her over of just like when I said I miss her, am I only missing the good parts or do I miss like the entire
Ah.
the relationship that we had? And if I missed the entire complicated relationship that we had, does that mean I'm also a glutton for punishment? Because there were also some really bad and harmful and tough things that we went through. And just making room for that complexity and like of who she was, it also made me scared to trust. I think once you've uh, experience trauma, intergenerational trauma, and you're working on healing, it can also make you feel scared to get traumatized again. You're not sure, can I trust this person again? And that's where I found myself was like, can I trust my mom again? Even though she's not here physically, if I build a spiritual relationship with her, am I opening myself up to harm again? Am I going to get hurt again? And that's when I realized that because my mom's not here anymore, I'll never have closure over the relationship. And that's actually okay. I think I'm making space for that.
Mhm.
Even if she was here and she could say, Jopa, I am so sorry. You're absolutely right. I was unskilled in loving you. I want to do better. Actually, that's not the end of the conversation. Even if she owned up to everything that had happened in our relationship, the work was learning how to trust her again. How do I trust her again? And one of the things that I'm learning a lot around love, the spiritual aspects, right? And this relates to social justice work too, right? For me, love is both accountability and forgiveness, or accountability and grace. And so how do you have those two things together? Because love without accountability is just manipulation, right? And
Mm.
that love without grace is also a form of manipulation, right? It's a form of coercion. And those are the things that I'm, still thinking about in my social justice origin story. I also think that the interpersonal is a reflection of the institutional, and the institutional is a reflection of the interpersonal. So I'm always constantly trying like two spaces to understand what does this mean in my social justice liberation work? What does this mean in my interpersonal relationships?
What do you think about when it comes to ensuring that over time, the Healing Timelines Project remains aligned with its core values, its core purpose and mission?
I'm still figuring that out. I think one of the things that I'm thinking about with my platform is how do they stay aligned with my values? And also, how do I pay attention to the in almost like insidious ways that oppression can show up in our passion projects, right? Mondo is
Yeah, here we go.
I yes, I have a family to provide for,
That's
right? And
right.
this project can be a way I could monetize it in a way that allows me to provide for my family. But I also know that this type of healing is needed in my community, and I don't want to sell people's healing back to them. And so how do I navigate this in a way where I feel like I've, as a facilitator, as a guide, as a healer, I've learned some things and I want to honor that knowledge, that the lineage of knowledge, essentially, right, that I've gained and I'm following and sustain myself and my family, not be self sacrificing. But also, again, I don't want to repackage my people's healing back to them. And so those are the tensions that I am navigating right now. And I think that being honest with those tensions and making those tensions explicit is one way that we make sure that we stay on course, I guess, in a way. When we name the tensions, we allow ourselves to let go of perfectionism and say that there's never going to be a perfect choice, right?
Mhm.
There's never going to be a perfect choice, but if we can articulate and explain why we're making certain decisions, and then also, I don't want to get stuck into a founder's syndrome situation. I want the project to be fluid. I want it to be relevant for the folks that come after me. And so what does it mean to design something like that? Yeah, I think for me right now, it's like naming my values, understanding what are the tensions that I'm navigating, and also making those strategies and those decisions really explicit and clear can really help make sure that it's still relevant and on course for folks.
Now, could you add some color to founder syndrome?
Founder syndrome, working in the nonprofit and philanthropic space, right? The way I think of it is like when you start something, it becomes your baby. You have all this emotional attachment towards it. I'm trying to make sure that I'm also navigating my own attachment to my
Oh, yeah.
project,
Oh,
being
yeah.
really aware of my emotions, making sure I have a lot of emotional maturity and emotional awareness around like, why did I start this project? And also understanding this has to do a lot with parenting. So
Yeah,
it's not
go
my brain.
for it.
One of the things I was learning when I became a mom was that even though your children come through you, right, they are not of you. Your children are not an extension of you. They come through you. And that is something that I want to think about, whether it's with my children. My project came through me, but is not of me, right? I may be able to offer a personality or a certain aspect of it, but I don't actually feel like it just belongs to me alone. Like it comes through me. And so like, how do I not suffocate it by trying to control this project or control my children, which will make everybody very miserable, but ensuring that I am allowing something to come through me and I'm caring for it in a way that allows it to still express itself in its most authentic form. So that's how I think about founder syndrome is when you start trying to control things because it is your baby, it's your passion project, it was your idea. But yeah, honoring that idea of understanding that if the idea came through you, it's not of you.
Yeah, through you, it's not of you. And in that, I feel like there's, at least what I'm taking from it, in that, I feel like there is a commitment then to growth and learning and change and thinking about what the capacity of this thing could be, even if something might come up that might be beyond what I might have originally dreamed. I'm giving this to the people in a sense. And so sometimes the usefulness of it or the use of it may even grow beyond what we might originally envision.
It allows for this value of co-creation, and that's something I value a lot is co-creation.
What are some things that you'd hope that listeners would take away from today?
One of the things I was talking about was connecting to a lineage or a movement. One kind of resonates for you. I think that a principle that I love in facilitation that I've adopted into my own life, right, is that possibilities exist because you exist, right? And our ancestors and our descendants are waiting for us to weave our past, present, and future. That's why I think of the Healing Timelines Project as really healing across timelines. Um, I believe that our healing work must be dual. It is about, yes, it's going between the interpersonal and the institutional. It's about dismantling our collective oppression and tapping into a higher vibration or a higher being or way that leads us to liberation and sovereignty. It's something that I would want listeners to take away from the story is just understanding how interconnected everything is and that it's actually traveling in between spaces where we learn the most about our own liberation and sovereignty.
How can listeners learn more about the Healing Timelines Project and all
Yeah,
that?
I have a lot of dreams for the Healing Timelines project, but I'm only one person. So most folks can find me through my Instagram page right now. It's Healing Timelines Project. As just being like a one woman show, it's easiest for me to just manage one platform at a time. Ultimately, the dream for the Healing Timelines Project is to one day have a website and other social media pages. But right now, I'm only on Instagram, and that's where I'm posting a lot of my resources and thoughts.